Sonic cruise missile engine. Whoa! How did that happen? By the way, that can defeat U.S. missile defenses. That was, according to the military, tied deeply to defense-related activities in Skolkovo. You say, okay, great. What's your point? 17 of the 28 companies involved in Skolkovo that made substantial donations to the Clinton Foundation. No! Oh, my God. How did that happen? Okay. And you may say, okay, go on. And a lot of this is in the Diana West piece, okay? So read the piece from the Daily Caller. It's from 2017, but it is good. Some of the emails intercepted from the Clinton team as part of FOIA requests, Joe. In the emails, Clinton Foundation staff were pushing a meeting with Victor Vexelberg and Bill Clinton. So the Clinton staff is pushing this meeting. Who was Vexelberg and what was the project he was promoting? Skolkovo. Folks.
Wow.
Now, I'm going to tell you a little inside baseball here. I was at CPAC recently, and I'm backstage in the green room. And I'm not going to use the names because they didn't give me permission to do so. But these are people you know, investigative reporters, relatively prominent. And I got into a conversation because I'm pretty confident Skolkovo is going to be another big shoe to drop in this case involving the Obama administration and their ties to Russia. Not Trump's ties to their ties to Russia. The real Trump-Russia scandal is the Obama team and Hillary. The Clinton team clearly was pushing this Skolkovo project based on emails, based on a push to have a meeting with this guy, based on donations Clinton got from Renaissance Bank, Bill Clinton to go give speeches based on the donations made to the Clinton Foundation from companies involved in Skolkovo. Now we know that one of Russia's most deadly weapons was at a minimum tied to technology developed at Skolkovo. Weapons used to potentially destroy us. Mm-hmm. But when I was backstage, I was talking to this investigative reporter, and I said, I think Skolkovo is a big deal. He said, he looked at me, Joe, and he goes, you have no idea. I may not. In other words, he knows something. He probably knows things I don't. I'm just saying, remember the names. Remember Skolkovo, folks, because this is a really, really big deal. Just yet, look up the stories. Just Google Russian missile. You'll see it come right up. Yesterday, they announced the development of a weapon designed to destroy us, make no mistake, that was developed at a project supported by people who made donations to the Clinton Foundation. And Bill Clinton, was pushed to meet with these people. There is so much dirt getting ready to come out on these people. I'm telling you, folks, it is a disaster layered upon an abomination, layered upon a catastrophe. All right, I got a lot more to get to here, so I'm going to move along because I feel like on this Friday show, if I don't get to this stuff, you know how it is, Joe.
Yeah.
By next week, the story's already, but given that, the one thing about the Trump team, they're never boring. You know, you miss the news for 5 minutes and it's over, Johnny.
Yep.
Okay. Again, it pains me to do this because I really do support the president a lot. I think he has the guts and the gusto here to make leave a footprint on the country we haven't seen since the Reagan years. But again, it pains me to say this. There were some very, very bad decisions announced yesterday. Really bad. And I'm not talking about the gun issue. I think that we can solve. I think, there's a lot of good voices at the table, and I think the president will come around on due process. But the decision that was publicly announced yesterday about steel and aluminum tariffs is an absolute disaster. There is no upside to this at all, folks. Now, some of you may think tariffs, this is a boring issue. Folks, this will be, I'm warning you now, an economic catastrophe if this goes through. To sum up, in case you missed it, an announcement was made yesterday by the Trump team that we are going to impose a significant tariff on steel imports into the country and aluminum imports. Mm-hmm. What is a tariff? It is a tax. That's why we're, as Republicans, we're levying taxes. I sincerely don't understand. I suspect I know who's behind this. I think Wilbur Ross, who's a cabinet secretary with Trump who has been big on tariffs from day one, is behind this. He's been a supporter of tariffs. It's not a secret. But, folks, this is a disaster, an absolute disaster. Now, let me explain to you why, because I have an obligation to put out the why, and the why matters. So just to be clear on what tariffs are, let's do this. Let's make it simple, because we've done this example before, Joe, of the islands.
Okay.
Let's say you have two islands, right? You have Island A and Island B, right?
Oh, right.
And there's 100 people on each island. Let's say they trade. If Island A wants to produce whatever, more coconuts on that island, one of the economically nonsensical ways to do it would be to say, well, listen, we're getting a lot of coconuts from Island B because they have a surplus.
Right.
So let's do this. Let's put a heavy tax on the sale of Island B's coconuts as they come into Island A. What would that do, Joe? It would make the price of Island B coconuts more expensive because you're putting a tax. They cost more money. And what would that do? Well, it would incentivize more people to buy coconuts on Island A. Now, if you're a liberal or you're not interested in understanding economics, stop right there, because that makes sense to you. You're like, oh, yeah, so what? Oh, Island B's coconuts are more expensive. We tax them. We don't tax our own coconuts, so people buy more of our own. Again, liberals, you can stop here. People who are interested in actual economics and what actually happens afterwards, now listen, because this is devastating and has never worked throughout human history. Here's what really happens in situations like that. Island A, now understanding that they don't have to compete with Island B's coconuts on price, Joe. Why? Because Island B's coconuts are going to be more expensive no matter what. Why? Because they're taxed.
Right.
There's just tariff on them, and Island A's aren't. Island A now raises its prices to match up with Island B, or maybe just a penny shy. Why? Because there's no price competition. Because if Island B's coconuts are, say they're $20, $10 for the coconut, $10 for the tax, Island A's like, well, we don't have to charge $10. We can charge $19.99 and we still win. Right, but it's just basic economics. What do you think? These companies are going to be generous? Folks, the same thing. I got to there's four downsides to this, so I got more. But please listen to me on this. American steel, absent foreign competition, because we're going to put tariffs on everybody else's steel coming into the country, will not lower its prices in response. That is not the way this works. They will hike their prices maybe just shy of the tariff. So now you pay more for imported steel and for domestic steel.
Oh, okay.
What is that? What is that? Second, you will unquestionably have global retaliation for this, by the way, which has already begun. Folks, Chinese steel is actually a very small portion of our steel imports. You know who's a really large portion of it? Canada. And we export a good swath of steel to Canada as well. And what is Canada and other people now saying, Joe? Hey, man, we're going to have to put a tariff on your steel, too, making your steel more expensive. So now the steel, domestic steel will raise its prices to meet the tariff. Secondly, it'll raise their prices overseas as well, because these other countries we export domestic steel to will have a tariff slapped on them, too. This, I am telling you, I know I'm going to get some emails from this from some interest groups. I will read them. I appreciate them. You are wrong. There are two things in economics, I'm telling you, where common sense, I'm not talking about ideologues. I mean common sense, rational economists. There are two areas. There is absolute unanimity amongst rational actors. It's that minimum wage does nothing for the economy overall. It does nothing. The second one is that tariffs absolutely will not lead to economic growth. If you raise the price on a product, regardless of where it comes from, you are simply taking the money out of the American citizen's pocket. There's no other explanation. Think about this, folks. The best way I had this explained to me was, if Island B wants to give us the coconuts for free, give us, let's say what people who don't understand trade call dumping. Like steel, China's dumping cheap steel on us. So what? Why do you care? If Island B wants to import coconuts for free and give them to us for free because they're just really nice people, now we don't have to work to get coconuts anymore. What's the downside? You may say, well, it's going to cost steel jobs. Folks, it may. It may cost steel jobs. But those jobs and those resources will be allocated to other. I know this is hard and it's pay. I get it. Believe me. I understand. Like, that doesn't sound good, Dan. It's going to cost steel jobs. It may. It very well may. But folks, the automobile cost horse and buggy jobs. This is stuff I've been there. I'm not speaking with forked tongue. Okay. Joe, you can vouch for me on this. Mm-hmm. I have given up government pensions. I've given up government jobs. I'm not looking for anybody. I don't care. I'm not celebrating myself. Please don't take this the wrong way. Right. I'm simply saying to you that I realized at some point the futility of what I was doing in that specific line of work, that it wasn't going to work anymore. And I had to find some other way to add to the economy and add value to the world. If someone wants to give you something for free, you take it. Now, no one's giving us anything for free. But folks, raising the price of it, forget about taking it for free. Raising the price of it dramatically is not going to help anyone. They are going to retaliate, and domestic industries are just going to increase prices. By the way, you know I never say this stuff without backing it up with facts. I've got some data for you. That's pretty darn conclusive. I just want to set this up first because this is going to be an important argument in the coming days, and I want you to be prepared. Third, so first was increased prices by the domestic industry as well to meet the tariffs. Second, you're going to have retaliation overseas. There's going to be tariffs on our products as well. Now everybody's going to pay more everywhere. Job losses, number 3. You will see job losses. Why will you see job losses? Because there are far more people who work in steel consumption industries than people who produce steel. Oh, you want the numbers? There are 6.5 million people who work in industries that heavily use steel. There are 140,000 people producing steel. When you raise the cost of steel for 6.5 million people using it, to so-called support the jobs of 140,000 people producing it, which you're not even supporting their jobs because I'm telling you other countries are going to retaliate. Mm-hmm. You are guaranteed to see job losses because of it. Let me ask you a simple question to make this job losses point more salient and clear. You want to pay more for your house? Simple question, yes or no? Well, of course I don't. Then you cannot support a steel tariff. There is no way you can support a steel tariff and say, I want to pay less for a house when I'm in the housing market. Because steel is a heavy component of some house building and construction. You want to pay more for your rent in your office? No, I don't. Okay, then you don't support a steel tariff. You want to pay more for your car? No, I don't want to pay more for my car. Okay, then you don't support a steel tariff. What do you think one of the main inputs, Joe, into a car is? Steel. So now the cost of cars goes up. And then what happens? People buy less cars, which means the auto industry hires less employees, which means they lose jobs. I've got more data on that. Don't let that go. I just want to set it up first. Fourth, let me give you an example here about what they call, quote, competitive difficulties in some reports. Mm-hmm. What are competitive difficulties? I was listening to an economics lecture once. It was fascinating. They were talking about a case study of the Brazilian computer industry. I've spoken about this before, Joe. Brazilians had a brilliant idea once, too, that they were going to be a technology center of the world, which is great. You can do that. You can foster a solid educational environment. You know, schools can get into job training for technology. That's great. That's not what they did. The Brazilians said, all right, we're going to put a big tariff on imported computers. Why? Because we're going to make them super expensive so people use Brazilian computers only, and it will increase jobs in the Brazilian computer industry, and it'll make us the technology capital of the known universe. It didn't work. What actually happened? Well, three things I spoke about prior happened, but the fourth thing was competitive difficulties happen. What are competitive difficulties?